Do you slow down if you're driving past a school?
Well, 8 in 10 people think that a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit should be the norm around schools, residential streets and in town centres. Well, Gamal Farnborough has more for us this morning.
Yes, very good morning to you, Lorraine and Alan. Well, the problem that a school like this has is that it's parked on a very narrow road, and mums and dads have been telling me that every single day they see cars driving up this road in speeds of excess of 30 miles per hour. Now, figures that I've seen have said that last year more than 25,000 people were either killed or seriously injured on the roads. Now, the hope is to reduce the speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour. That figure could be dramatically reduced.
Check-in speeds outside school. Most drivers are travelling within the 30-mile-per-hour limit.
21 miles per hour.
But there are calls for a drop in the speed limit around schools, residential areas and town centres to 20 miles per hour. And trials across the country have shown a big drop in accidents. In Portsmouth, casualties fell by 22%. Crashes in Camden reduced by over half. And child pedestrian accidents decreased by up to 70%.
With cars driving down a narrow road, it's clear why the kids here have launched a campaign. But what do parents think about reducing the limit?
It frightens me, to be honest, when they're coming out of school that cars don't slow down enough.
If it's 20, I think people are more aware of the speed they're going. And if they're going 30, it easily goes up to 35.
It just takes one child to just suddenly go off the pavement and that's it.
Well, as you heard in my piece there, they're so concerned have been the kids that they've launched the campaign. Hello, guys, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Let's talk to Lucas, who's been spearheading this campaign. Hi, Lucas. Why do we need to reduce the speed limits in an area like this from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour?
Well, it'll make it more safe in our area, and it's a good cause. It will reduce the risk of high injury when the speed limit has been lowered. And also we believe that all schools should get involved with this campaign.
Now, Catherine, how concerning is it for you, for a mum, when you drop your kids off at the school and pick them up afterwards?
Yes, it is apparent every day that there is speeding going on, and the roads around here are narrow with tight bends and no pavement sometimes, so often the children are having to be on the roads themselves.
And a big worry for you as well, Michelle?
I think anything that causes sort of like injuries to children and to improve safety, it's got to be a good thing.
Now, every week, more than 60 children are injured or even killed on the roads, and this is a figure that's way too high for safety officers like Greg here. What would you like to see change, Greg?
I'd like to see the speed limit reduced to 20 miles an hour. With it being a fairly steep gradient on this road, cars do go at speed down, and certainly when they're coming up, they do accelerate away, many times well above 30 miles an hour.
Greg, thank you very much for your time. Well, the hope is that in built-up areas up and down the country, a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit will be mandatory.
Thank you very much, Gamal. Well, we're joined now by Danny Dorling, who's Professor of Human Geography at Oxford University. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You think that cutting the speed limit will save lives, but you think it'll have other benefits as well?
It has wider effects. Once you've got cars going down to 20 miles an hour in urban areas, people are much happier to let their children go out and play, to let their children cycle. Adults are happier to cycle, and it makes our city centres much more sociable. So there are already 100 areas of the country, 100 local authorities that have 20 miles an hour on almost all their residential streets. Right. There's only about 300 left to go.
In Europe, they have even less than that. It's 18.5 miles an hour, I think, and more kids walk to school.
Yes, because they have a 30-kilometre-an-hour speed limit in much of urban Europe, and that just makes people much happier about using the middle of their cities, about walking around schools, shops and residential streets. And it's coming into this country, it's just coming in piecemeal. So it's in Oxford, it's in Camden, it's in Portsmouth, and we've seen the effects there. But if your local councillors haven't pushed for it, your local area doesn't have 20 miles an hour.
Strange, isn't it? You would expect this to be something that would be rolled out all across the country. You know, it works. We've seen the figures that it actually does work. Effect on drivers, though, does it make drivers more stressed, or does it actually make them better?
It calms them down. I mean, it stops them bunching at traffic lights. It actually reduces air pollution, which is, you know,
Indeed,
apart from now...
talking about that,
of course.
It makes driving less scary for a lot of people who actually don't like speeding along and trying to stay at 30 because everybody else is doing it. And also it self-reinforces, because once you've got a lot of cars going down to 20, people learn behind to do it, and it calms the whole situation down.
OK, some of the petrol heads will say you're just anti-cars.
I drive a car. I'm anti-people being antisocial. Really, we've had this 30-mile-an-hour limit for a long time now. Cars are now the biggest danger to our children because diseases and so on have reduced. It's time that we actually slowed them down, and not just for kids, elderly people.
Sure.
Elderly people are incredibly more likely to be seriously injured when they're hit by a car going at the same speed as hits an adult in the prime of their life. And elderly people are scared about crossing the roads in Britain.
So it just makes life better all round?
It's very hard to see a downside of slowing cars down to 20 in our cities.
Sure.
And it is worth asking why we're not thinking about doing this nationally,
Absolutely.
given that 100 local authorities have already done it.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.